You've been smiling at that phone like it's about to propose to you. He might as well. Clara, that man is showing off, not courting. Lila, do you went to boutiques like it's nothing? I'm tired of surviving. I want to live. Lila, I'm tired of surviving. I want to live. Living and being owned aren't the same thing. You always say that, but you also still split rent with 2 roommates. I'm free. Freedom doesn't pay for spa days. It's him! Put it on speaker.
No way.
Hello?
Clara, I was just thinking about your smile.
You always say the right things.
I mean them.
Are you still in that little coffee shop? Yeah.
Walk outside. I want you to see something. I'm here.
Oh, wow.
This is my future. Clara,
You didn't tell me you were coming.
I don't like waiting. And you must be the friend who doesn't believe in miracles.
I believe in people being honest.
Honesty is expensive. Dinner, 5-star restaurant, come.
Just this once.
Clara,
It's okay.
you don't belong in small places.
How did Rec you know?
And I feed what I want.
That sounds intense.
So am I. Get used to it.
I've never eaten anywhere like this.
I don't waste time on temporary women. Marry me.
What?
I can give you the life you dream of. No more bus rides, no more cheap apartments.
We barely know each other.
That's why it's pure.
I've always wanted...
Say yes.
Yes. God help her. I still can't believe this is my life.
You wanted luxury. You have it.
I wanted love too.
Love is loyalty.
I was thinking maybe I could go see Lila today.
Why?
She's my best friend.
You're married now. You don't need anyone else.
Not healthy, Marcus.
I didn't spend millions to argue with you. Who said you could call?
She's worried about me.
She should be worried about herself.
Clara believed she had finally arrived the morning she became Mrs. Marcus Hale. The wedding took place on a cliffside estate overlooking the Pacific, where white roses lined a long aisle and soft music floated through the salt-sweet air. Guests whispered about how lucky she was, about how a girl from nothing had married into everything. The diamond necklace around her neck was worth more than the house she grew up in. Marcus stood beside her in a flawless tuxedo, handsome, confident, admired by everyone in the room. When he kissed her hand, his touch was gentle. "You're safe now," he whispered. "You'll never have to worry again." Clara believed him. She had grown up watching her mother stretch every dollar and cry over unpaid bills. She had promised herself she would never live like that. When Marcus entered her life with private jets, 5-star hotels, and promises of forever, she thought God had finally opened the door to a better world. What she did not know was that she had stepped into a beautiful prison. At first, marriage felt like a dream. Clara woke up in a mansion with sunlight pouring through tall windows. Breakfast was served on silver trays. Staff greeted her with polite smiles. Marcus bought her clothes, jewelry, and anything she ever admired. He called her his queen in public and held her hand tightly wherever they went. But small changes crept in quietly. He started commenting on what she wore. A dress would suddenly be too revealing or not classy enough. He began correcting the way she spoke, telling her not to laugh so loudly, not to talk too much, not to ask questions in front of his business partners. Clara told herself he was just protective, just particular. Then came the jealousy. One evening at a charity gala, a photographer spoke to Clara for less than a minute. Marcus watched from across the room with a tight jaw. In the car on the way home, his voice was cold. Do you enjoy making me look stupid? I was just answering a question, Clara said softly. You belong to me, he replied. Don't forget that. For 3 days after that, he ignored her. He slept in a different room, refused to speak to her, walked past her as though she didn't exist. The silence was worse than shouting. Clara cried alone in a mansion that felt suddenly empty. The first time Marcus hit her, it was over something small. Clara had noticed the scent of perfume on his jacket and asked where he had been. Are you accusing me? He snapped. I just wanted to. His hand struck her face so fast she barely had time to react. The sound was sharp and final. Marcus stared at her for a moment, as if surprised by what he had done. I'm sorry, he said quickly. You pushed me. The next morning, a diamond bracelet sat on her pillow. Clara wore it to cover the bruise. After that, she learned how to survive. She stopped asking questions. She learned how to read his moods, how to stay quiet when his voice changed, how to smile when guests were around. Marcus was 2 men. One was the charming billionaire who kissed her in public and made generous donations to charities. The other was the man who locked doors, raised his voice, and made her feel small. When he was angry, he called her worthless. When he was drunk, he shoved her into walls. He never hit her face again. He was careful. He liked to keep up appearances. The worst pain came when he started bringing other women into the house. One evening, Clara came home early from visiting her friend Lila and found a young woman sitting on the couch wearing one of Clara's silk robes. Marcus was pouring her wine like she was the lady of the house. This is Ava, he said casually. She's staying for a while. Clara's heart cracked open. You brought her here? She whispered. Marcus stepped close. You don't get to tell me what to do. Ava stayed for 2 weeks. Then another woman came. And another. Marcus made sure Clara saw them. It was his way of reminding her that she had no power. Slowly, he took everything else from her too. He cancelled her credit cards. He told the staff not to listen to her. He warned her that Lila was a bad influence. Eventually, he moved her to a quiet estate far from the city, far from anyone who might notice what was happening. You don't need anyone but me, he said. Clara began to disappear. Her reflection in the mirror looked unfamiliar. Her eyes were tired. Her smile was forced. She felt like a ghost walking through her own life. The breaking point came one night when Marcus arrived home drunk with another woman and Clara refused to leave her bedroom. His rage exploded. He shoved her onto the floor, shouting that she was ungrateful, that he owned her, that she would be nothing without him. Something inside Clara finally woke up. She realized in that moment that if she stayed, she would die there, not necessarily from a single blow, but from the slow death of fear and silence. And that was the moment she began to plan her escape. If you want, I can continue into how she gets out, how Lila helps her, and how Joshua enters her life. Clara began to plan her escape in silence. At first, the idea felt impossible. Marcus controlled everything, the money, the cars, the staff, even the doors. Cameras watched every hallway. Security guards reported directly to him. Clara felt like a prisoner being watched by invisible eyes. But something inside her had shifted. The night he shoved her to the floor and stood over her, drunk and furious, she saw her future clearly for the first time. It was not just bruises. It was not just humiliation. It was a slow, quiet death of her soul. She started paying attention. She noticed which guards changed shifts. Which staff members avoided Marcus. Which doors were locked and which weren't. She began hiding small amounts of cash from the household money he gave her for groceries and personal items. A few dollars here. 20 there. It wasn't much, but it felt like oxygen. Marcus grew more unpredictable. Some days he acted loving, bringing her flowers, calling her beautiful, telling her he was sorry. Other days he exploded over nothing. A cold dinner. A misplaced phone. A look he didn't like. He accused her of cheating even though she barely left the house. "You think I don't see the way you look at men," he would say. "You think you're smarter than me?" She learned not to respond. One afternoon, Clara found a note slipped into her purse. It was from one of the housekeepers, a quiet older woman named Rosa. "If you ever need help, go to the back laundry door at 6 a.m. Clara's hand shook when she read it. That was when she knew she wasn't as invisible as Marcus had made her feel. Marcus did not change after the night Clara realized she had to escape. In fact, in the weeks that followed, his cruelty became more calculated, more quiet, and in some ways more terrifying. He no longer exploded all the time. He learned that fear worked better when it was controlled. Sometimes it was just his hand, a sudden slap across her cheek when she spoke out of turn, when she asked a question he didn't like, when she didn't move fast enough. It was never in front of anyone. It was always just enough to hurt, just enough to humiliate, just enough to remind her who had power. Other times it was his voice. "You're nothing without me," he would say calmly. "Do you know how many women would kill to live this life? You're lucky I even keep you." Clara stopped reacting. At first she cried. Then she begged. Then she tried to explain. None of it made a difference. Eventually, she learned the most dangerous thing to do was show emotion. So she became quiet. When he slapped her, she would look at the floor. When he insulted her, she would nod. When he blamed her, she would say nothing. Inside, she was screaming. Outside, she was frozen. Marcus noticed this and it pleased him. He liked the way she shrank. He liked the way she avoided his eyes. He liked knowing she was afraid. Fear made him feel powerful. There were days when Clara would wake up already tense, waiting for something bad to happen. Even when Marcus was in a good mood, her body never relaxed. She had learned that kindness could disappear without warning. One evening, Marcus accused her of looking at one of his friends in the wrong way. Clara tried to say she hadn't even noticed him. "Don't lie to me," Marcus said. He slapped her so hard her ears rang. She didn't fall. She didn't cry. She just stood there, numb, staring at the wall as if she had left her body behind. Marcus walked away as if nothing had happened. That was the moment Clara realized something was happening inside her that scared her more than his anger. She was becoming empty. Days blended into each other. Clara stopped thinking about the future. She stopped dreaming. She lived only from one moment to the next, trying to survive without provoking him. She no longer felt like a woman with a life, she felt like an object that belonged to someone else. When Marcus brought other women into the house, she felt nothing at all. The jealousy, the heartbreak, the humiliation, it was all buried under a heavy numbness. This is what abuse did to her. It didn't just hurt her body. It erased her. She was still breathing, still walking, still speaking when required, but inside, she was stuck. Frozen in a place where fear and hopelessness lived. And Marcus believed that meant he had won. But even in that numbness, somewhere deep inside Clara, something was still alive. A small, quiet voice that whispered, "This is not your life. This is not who you are. This will not be the end." That voice was faint, but it was enough. and one day, it would be the thing that saved her. The chandeliers of the Belvedere Hotel shimmered like frozen stars above the sea of wealth that moved beneath them, each crystal catching the light and scattering it across silk gowns, tailored tuxedos, and diamond-heavy laughter. Clara stood at the entrance of the grand ballroom, her spine straight, her heart unsteady, watching as Marcus Hale crossed the room like a king who owned every breath in it. He wore confidence as easily as he wore his perfectly cut black suit. People leaned toward him when he spoke. They waited for his nod, his smile, his approval. She followed him a few steps behind, as she always did now. The woman who had once believed love could make her powerful had learned that love could also make her invisible. "Clara," Marcus said without turning around, holding out his hand behind him as if she were an accessory. She placed her fingers into his palm. He didn't squeeze. He barely acknowledged her touch. They moved deeper into the room, surrounded by the glittering elite of Los Angeles, bankers, politicians, CEOs, and celebrities who wore smiles trained to hide hunger. A waiter passed with a silver tray of champagne flutes. Marcus took one. He didn't offer Clara one. "Remember," he murmured low enough that only she could hear, "you smile. You don't speak unless I tell you to." Clara nodded, though a quiet ache twisted inside her chest. Tonight was supposed to be a charity gala. A fundraiser for underprivileged children. Marcus had told her to dress elegantly, to look like a billionaire's wife. For a moment, while she'd been getting ready, she dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, this would be a night where she was allowed to exist. But hope was something Marcus Hale had trained out of her. They stopped near a cluster of donors. Marcus greeted them warmly, laughing, shaking hands, telling stories that made people lean closer. Clara stood beside him, smiling softly, nodding when expected. To them, she was beautiful but silent. Decorative. Then a woman approached. She wore a sharp gray suit and a professional smile. "Mr. Hale," she said, handing Marcus a clipboard. "We just need the guest confirmations for the North Wing tables." Marcus glanced at the list, then handed it back, to Clara. "Take care of it," he said casually. The woman turned to Clara. "Thank you," she said, already assuming. Clara's lips parted. Marcus didn't look at her. "Make sure everyone is checked in properly." The implication settled in the air like dust. People nearby began watching. A few whispered. The donors Clara had been standing with suddenly shifted their attention away from her, toward Marcus. The woman with the clipboard smiled politely, waiting. Clara felt the heat rush to her face. "I'm not," she began, but Marcus cut her off with a soft chuckle. "She likes to help. Keeps her busy." And just like that, Clara became staff. For the next hour, she stood near the entrance, checking off names as wealthy guests arrived, handing out wristbands, directing them to their tables. Some barely looked at her. Others snapped their fingers impatiently. A few recognized her, their eyes flickering with confusion and then something like pity. Marcus passed her once, laughing with two investors. He didn't even glance her way. The humiliation burned slowly, deeply, like a bruise spreading beneath the skin. By the time the gala ended, Clara's hands were trembling. The next humiliation came only days later. Marcus had summoned her to the Beverly Hills boutique district that afternoon. The kind of place where the windows displayed dresses worth more than most people's yearly salaries. He waited outside, checking his phone, while she went inside alone. Clara chose a simple dress. Not too flashy. Just something soft and elegant. Something that made her feel like a woman again, not a shadow. At the register, the saleswoman smiled. "That will be $1,280. Clara handed over her card. The machine beeped. The saleswoman frowned. "I'm sorry, it declined." Clara felt her stomach drop. "That's not possible." She tried again. Declined. People behind her began to shift impatiently. "I'll just call my husband," Clara said, stepping aside. Her hand shook as she dialed Marcus. He answered on the third ring. "What?" "My card isn't working." Silence. Then, calmly, "I froze your accounts." Clara swallowed. "Why?" "Because you forgot to thank me this morning." Her chest tightened. "Marcus, please. I'm in a store." "I know." The realization hit her like cold water. He had done this on purpose. "You don't need money if you behave," he continued. "Put the dress back." She stood there, surrounded by strangers, her face burning as the saleswoman carefully took the dress from her hands. When Clara walked back outside, empty-handed, Marcus didn't even look up from his phone. "Get in the car." A week later, they flew to New York on Marcus's private jet. The plane was enormous, fitted with plush leather seats, polished wood, and champagne on ice. Clara walked toward the pair of seats beside Marcus, as she had always done. He stopped her with a raised hand. "Not there." She froze. "What?" "Sit in the back with the assistants." Several people were already seated, young executives, aides, and one flight attendant. All of them looked up. "Marcus," Clara whispered. He leaned closer, his voice quiet and deadly. "Don't embarrass me." So she turned and walked past the polished table, past. The curtain might as well have been a wall of glass, because Clara could still hear Marcus's laughter from the front of the jet, rich and relaxed, as though he were seated on a throne instead of a leather chair. The people beside her spoke in low professional tones, discussing schedules and numbers, pretending not to notice that the billionaire's wife had been quietly exiled. Clara stared at her folded hands and reminded herself to breathe. Every humiliation Marcus crafted was deliberate. He wanted her to feel small. He wanted her to remember where he believed she belonged. When they landed in New York, a black car waited on the tarmac. Marcus stepped out first, adjusting his cufflinks as cameras flashed. Clara followed behind him, as always, but this time one of his assistants stepped in front of her. "Miss, the staff entrance is around the back." Clara stopped, her heart dropping into her stomach. She looked at Marcus, expecting him to correct the mistake. He didn't. He slid into the car and closed the door. So Clara walked around the building, past the loading docks and delivery trucks, her heels clicking against concrete while strangers glanced at her with indifference. By the time she reached the back entrance, her eyes stung, but she forced herself not to cry. Marcus hated when she cried. He called it weakness. The hotel suite was enormous, all glass walls and skyline views. Marcus barely acknowledged her when she arrived. "Unpack," he said. "I have meetings." That night, Clara stood in front of the bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked hollow, as though someone had been slowly erasing her. A few days later, Marcus told her they were going to a party. "It's my birthday," she said quietly, almost afraid to say it out loud. He looked at her blankly. "Is it?" "Yes." He shrugged. "We'll see." The mansion was already full when they arrived. Music pulsed through the walls. Guests laughed and danced beneath crystal chandeliers. Clara's heart fluttered with a fragile hope as she saw the decorations, the long tables, the towering cake. Maybe he remembered. Maybe this was for her. But as the evening unfolded, no one said her name. Not once. Marcus moved through the crowd, greeting business partners, clinking glasses, making deals. A banner hung across the room, "Congratulations, Marcus Hale." Her chest tightened. She approached him carefully. "Marcus, what is this?" He didn't even lower his voice. "A celebration. My company just closed a $10 billion merger. And, my birthday?" He frowned slightly, as if she were a child asking a foolish question. "Oh. That." He glanced around the crowded room. "I forgot." The words fell between them like broken glass. A few nearby guests went quiet, pretending not to listen. Clara nodded slowly, even as her eyes filled. "I see." Later that night, she stood alone near the cake while people toasted Marcus's success. No one noticed her slipping away. The next morning, she found her closet empty. All her dresses were gone. All her shoes. All her jewelry. In their place lay a neatly folded maid's uniform. She stood there, frozen. Marcus appeared in the doorway, sipping coffee. "Put it on." "Why?" "You live here. You eat my food. You wear my roof. You can contribute." Her hands trembled as she picked up the uniform. That day, she cleaned the mansion while guests came and went. Some mistook her for staff. Others recognized her and looked away. Marcus walked past her once, stepping over the wet floor she had just mopped without acknowledging her existence. At dinner that night, he brought clients home. Clara stood at the edge of the table, serving drinks. One of the men laughed. "You run a tight ship, Marcus." Marcus smiled. "I like things in order." Clara lowered her eyes. Later, she tried to speak. Just one sentence. "I was thinking maybe." Marcus cut her off. "Sweetheart, adults are talking." The table chuckled politely. Clara felt herself disappear. By the time she returned to their bedroom that night, something inside her had gone very quiet. The quiet in the bedroom was heavy, almost suffocating. Clara sank onto the edge of the bed, the silk sheets cool against her trembling legs. Marcus didn't sit beside her. He never did anymore. He merely leaned against the doorway, phone in hand, scrolling, completely absorbed in his own world. She stared at him, trying to summon the words she had rehearsed 1,000 times in the mirror. She wanted to speak, to demand, to cry, but even those instincts had been trained away. Every outburst had been met with dismissal, punishment, or humiliation. Every tear had been met with his cold amusement. "I'm sorry," she whispered to herself, not to him, though the words felt like a lifeline. "I'm sorry I thought I mattered." Marcus glanced up for a brief second. His eyes were indifferent, almost clinical. "Go to sleep," he said, and returned to his phone. The following days passed in a blur of orchestrated shame. Clara went to social events only to be relegated to the margins. She was the woman who smiled and nodded, the wife who existed solely to reflect Marcus's brilliance while erasing her own presence. At a business luncheon, she poured wine for investors who ignored her. At an art exhibit, she carried a catalog that guests never opened. At a polo match, she held the umbrella over Marcus while he mounted his horse, every muscle in her back taut with effort and humiliation. Then came the ultimate test of her submission. Marcus summoned her to their living room one evening, the city skyline glowing behind him through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He held his phone in front of her. A post, already written. "You're going to publish this," he said. Clara read the words, her stomach twisting violently. "I'm sorry for being ungrateful to my amazing husband who gives me everything. I don't deserve his generosity." Her hands shook. "I can't." "You will," Marcus interrupted. "Now." Clara's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Her mind screamed, every fiber of her being rebelling, but she obeyed. She typed the final sentence, pressed send, and felt as though she had emptied herself into a digital cage. 1,000 strangers would see her apology. 1,000 strangers would see her submission. Marcus watched, satisfied, as if he had just completed some flawless experiment. She sat back, exhausted. Humiliation wasn't just physical, it had become spiritual. He had taken everything, her dignity, her agency, her voice. He had reduced her to an echo of herself. That night, Clara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass doors, a ghost trapped in a mansion she could not escape. But beneath the fear, beneath the shame, a faint ember of something else stirred. A quiet, persistent thought that maybe, just maybe, this was not the end. If Marcus could strip her of everything, perhaps there was something he could not take. Perhaps there was a part of her that remained untouched, hidden beneath the uniform, the forced smiles, the digital apologies. And if that ember could be fanned, nurtured, it could grow. It could grow into fire. Somewhere deep inside Clara, a resolve began to form, not loud, not urgent, but patient. It whispered that humiliation could be endured, that invisibility could be survived, and that one day, the woman Marcus Hale had tried to erase might finally reclaim herself. For now, though, she stayed quiet. She smiled when expected. She served when instructed. She existed in the shadows of his brilliance, a ghost in a golden cage. But the ember burned, quiet and unyielding. And even in the deepest, most unrelenting humiliation, Clara's story was not yet finished. But redemption was on its way. If you've been following this story, please subscribe to Timeless Stories and tell us what you've learned so far.
It's such a lovely evening, isn't it?
Absolutely, especially with such delightful company.
He told a joke.
You embarrass me.
You're hurting me.
Then stop provoking me. Now you'll remember.
I left everything for you.
You belong to me.
Marcus, the credit card was declined. I think the bank blocked it again.
What did you do?
Nothing, I swear.
You think you can embarrass me?
I was just trying to buy groceries.
You don't touch money without my permission.
Please, I was just trying to... Marcus, you're hurting me!
You only feel pain when you deserve it.
Somebody help me!
You scream in my house!
God, if you're real, please save me. If you're real, please.
Who the hell? Open the door! If you say one word, I'll kill you. I heard screaming from the street. Get lost! Sir, step away from her. This is my wife. That dog doesn't... Don't! You don't know who I am! I know who you're not. You're not a man. You do. I called him.
Thank you.
You're safe now.
I thought I lost you. I thought I lost myself. Why didn't you call me? I was ashamed. I had everything except peace.
I just wanted to check on you.
You saved my life.
No, God did. I was just listening.
I prayed that night for the first time in years.
Sometimes God lets the storm rage until we cry out.
I was drowning in silk and you might give him my broken past.
Jesus doesn't love you because you're perfect. He loves you because you're His.
I used to live in a mansion. I slept in fear every night, but I never found peace. Most sensible in life over, but I have Jesus of peace. My advice to all women, men who marry for the wrong reasons. Marry for purpose, learn from my life.